Your dog's fear of thunder does not start with thunder. It starts 40 minutes before the first rumble, with barometric pressure, electromagnetic fields, and static electricity that your dog's body detects and yours cannot. By the time you hear the storm, your dog has been in a building cortisol spiral for the better part of an hour. And every strategy most owners use, the comforting, the distracting, the waiting it out, addresses the explosion, not the fuse. Welcome to Paws Chronicles, the Canine Mindset channel. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is happening in your dog's brain from the moment a storm is 40 miles away. And you will have a protocol that intervenes at the fuse, not the explosion. Because for up to 50% of all dogs, this is not a quirk. This is a phobia. And phobias have a neuroscience. And neuroscience has a solution. Let me tell you what noise phobia actually costs. It is the second most common behavioral referral to veterinary behaviorists, behind only aggression. Up to 50% of dogs are affected to some degree. Of those, roughly a third experience what researchers classify as severe phobia, the kind that produces self-injury, property destruction, and escape attempts that put dogs in genuine danger. More dogs are lost in the 24 hours following major storms and fireworks than on any other days of the year. Not because they ran away. Because a panicking dog does not make rational spatial decisions. It runs from the feeling. And the feeling is everywhere. And here is what makes this so frustrating. You may have tried things that worked once. The thunder shirt helped last summer. The calming chews seemed to make a difference in autumn. And then one winter storm came through and your dog fell apart as if nothing had ever been done. That inconsistency is not a sign that your dog is irrational. It is a sign of a mechanism most owners have never been told about. A mechanism that explains both why phobia gets worse over time and why interventions applied too late produce results that never hold. We are going to dismantle that mechanism completely. But first, you need to understand what your dog's body is actually detecting. In the next 2 minutes I'm going to walk you through the 4 physical signals your dog detects before a storm arrives, and what each one does to the nervous system. Once you know this, you'll understand why your dog knows the storm is coming before any weather app does. That's next. What your dog senses that you cannot. Your dog's fear of thunder is not actually a fear of sound. The sound is almost always the last thing in the sequence, not the first. Here is what actually precedes the thunder. Signal 1, barometric pressure drop. Atmospheric pressure begins falling as a storm system approaches, sometimes hours before it arrives. Dogs show measurable behavioral changes in response to pressure shifts that most human instruments would register as routine fluctuation. The vestibular system in the dog's inner ear is exquisitely sensitive to these changes. It registers them as environmental abnormality, which, to a threat detection nervous system, means something is wrong. Signal 2, electromagnetic field shifts. Thunderstorms generate electromagnetic fields that propagate ahead of the storm itself. Research on animal behavior before earthquakes and major weather events consistently finds that many species detect and respond to these electromagnetic shifts before any sensory information from the event arrives. Dogs are almost certainly among them. Signal 3, static electricity. This one is particularly important because it is physically uncomfortable. Static builds in the atmosphere ahead of thunderstorms, and dogs, especially those with dense coats, accumulate static charge on their fur. This creates a diffuse, unlocatable discomfort across the entire body surface. The dog cannot find the source. It cannot relieve it. It cannot understand what is happening. This is why so many noisephobic dogs seek bathtubs, basements, and tiled rooms during storms. Porcelain, ceramic, and concrete are non-conductive. The static discomfort diminishes there. The dog found this through trial and error. It is not irrational. It is precise problem-solving under duress. Signal 4, infrasound. Thunder generates frequencies below the threshold of human hearing, 20 Hz and below. These frequencies travel further and arrive earlier than audible components. Dogs hear ranges that extend into the infrasound band. And infrasound at sufficient intensity produces a visceral physical sensation, pressure in the chest cavity, disorientation, something close to nausea. Before you hear a single rumble, your dog may already be experiencing the physical sensation of the storm pressing against its body. Now here is where it gets critical, because these 4 signals don't just scare the dog once. They build. They stack. And by the time the audible thunder arrives, something has already happened in the brain that makes everything worse. It's called sensitization, and it's the reason storm phobia almost always intensifies every year. That's next. Why it gets worse every year. Here is the mechanism that explains why your dog's storm phobia probably worsens every season instead of improving. Every time the fear response fires, every time the pre-storm signals activate the threat system and the dog experiences the cortisol flood of a fear event, the neural pathway that produced that response gets reinforced. Neurons that fire together wire together. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, does not just respond to threats. It learns them. It encodes the features of the threatening event with extraordinary precision and durability. And after each fear event, it lowers the threshold for what will trigger the same response next time. This is sensitization. The nervous system becoming progressively more sensitive to the same input over time. Not less. And here is the feature of sensitization that most owners are never told: it generalizes. The amygdala does not just encode loud thunder. It encodes all the contextual features present during the fear event: the pressure drop, the specific smell of rain on hot pavement, the quality of light that precedes storms, the sound of distant wind. Any of those features, encountered later without a storm, can trigger the same fear response. This is why many dogs with storm phobia become anxious on overcast days. Why they react to rain on a window without thunder. Why significant wind sends them under the bed. The fear has generalized far beyond the original trigger. The dog is now living in a world where an enormous range of ordinary sensory experiences carry the neurological signature of danger. Every time this generalized response fires, even when no storm arrives, it reinforces the pathway further. The spiral tightens. There is also a second mechanism making this worse, one that most owners accidentally activate every single time they try to comfort their dog during a storm. It is called the reassurance trap. And there's a good chance you've been walking straight into it. That's next. The thing you do to help, that makes it worse. Almost every dog owner does this. And in doing it, almost every dog owner accidentally reinforces the phobia. When you comfort a frightened dog during a storm, speaking in a soft voice, stroking it repeatedly, allowing it to press against you, you are, from the dog's perspective, confirming that something is seriously wrong. Your voice is higher than normal. Your body is still and focused. Your touch is deliberate and sustained. You are sending your dog every signal that you send when something serious has happened. And your dog, which reads your body language with extraordinary precision, registers all of it. The technical term for what happens when owner anxiety transfers to the dog is emotional contagion. Dogs are not just reading your explicit signals. They are detecting your chemosignals, cortisol in your sweat, adrenaline in your breath, the change in your heart rate. When you are anxious about your dog's anxiety, your dog detects that anxiety. Anxious owner plus storm equals more data points for the amygdala to file under, dangerous. This does not mean you should ignore your dog during a storm. It means the way you are present matters as much as whether you are present. Calm presence is not the same as anxious comfort. Move through the space normally. Speak at normal pitch and pace, not the high-pitched reassurance tone. Be available without becoming a mirror for the distress. Your dog is looking to you for information about whether the situation is actually dangerous. If you look frightened for it, it takes that as a data point. Now here is the part most videos skip entirely, because it requires understanding something about how fear memories work at the cellular level. This is the piece that explains why the protocol works, and why doing the protocol at the wrong moment is exactly as useless as the reassurance trap. That's in about 90 seconds. Why timing is everything. Every time a fear memory is retrieved, every time the brain accesses the stored record of a past fear event, there is a brief window during which that memory is malleable. Neuroscientists call this reconsolidation. The memory is destabilized when retrieved. And for a short period, new information can be incorporated into it. If what happens during that window is more fear, the reconsolidated memory becomes stronger. More deeply encoded. Lower threshold next time. If what happens during that window is safety, calm, and something genuinely positive, the reconsolidated memory can be updated. The threat association weakened. The threshold raised. This is the neurological basis of every effective desensitization protocol for noise phobia. And it explains the critical timing rule: the work must happen below the panic threshold. A dog already in full panic, cortisol flooding, amygdala dominant, prefrontal cortex offline, cannot update a fear memory. The reconsolidation window requires the brain to be in a state where new information can actually be processed. This is why playing storm sounds at maximum volume and hoping for habituation does not work. This is why offering treats to a dog already trembling does not work. You are arriving at a locked door. The update happens when the stimulus is present but the fear response has not yet fully activated. Below threshold. The window is open. The brain can learn. Now, the protocol. 4 phases. Starting tonight with phase 1, which requires 0 equipment, 0 cost, and produces measurable change within 2 weeks. That's next. What actually works, starting tonight? The complete storm desensitization protocol has 4 phases. They are sequential. Each one builds the neurological foundation the next one requires. Phase 1, safe space construction. Before any desensitization work, your dog needs a location neurologically anchored to safety. Not just comfortable, neurologically anchored. The distinction matters. Choose a space that naturally reduces static charge: a bathroom, a basement-level room, anywhere with tile, porcelain, or concrete. This reduces the static discomfort that precedes and accompanies storms. Add dense bedding, which provides proprioceptive compression that activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Add white noise to acoustically mask both infrasound and audible thunder. Add a worn piece of your clothing. Your chemosignals in a calm, non-anxious state are the most powerful calming anchor available. Introduce this space before any storm arrives. Make it the location where extraordinarily good things happen: a specific treat, a puzzle feeder, quiet resting time. The nervous system must encode this space as safe during calm moments, not discover it as a refuge during panic. Phase 2, threshold mapping. On a calm, clear day, play a storm sounds recording at very low volume. Watch for the first signs of mild attention: ears rotating, head lifting, a slight posture change, but not distress. Not panic. That is your working volume. It is almost certainly much lower than you expect. This subthreshold level is where learning is possible. This is where the reconsolidation window stays open. Phase 3, counterconditioning. At working volume, begin the pairing. Storm sounds start. Immediately, the highest value food reward your dog will accept: something extraordinary, something it never receives in any other context. Storm sounds continue. Treats continue. Storm sounds stop. Treats stop. The storm sound now predicts the extraordinary treat. Over hundreds of repetitions across weeks, the emotional association shifts at the neurological level. From threat to anticipated reward. Increase volume only after the dog is demonstrably relaxed at the current level. Any sign of distress, stop, reduce volume, return to consolidating the previous level. Progress is not linear. Setbacks are calibration, not failure. Phase 4, real storm management, the bridge protocol. Until desensitization is complete, real storms will still trigger fear. At the first pre-storm signs, any early detection behavior, move your dog to the established safe space. Do not wait for full panic. Act at the fuse. Settle yourself in the space calmly. Bring the extraordinary treat from counter-conditioning sessions. Move through the space normally. Do not freeze in sympathetic posture over the dog. Do not use the high-pitch reassurance voice. Be available without mirroring the distress. If the dog seeks physical contact, allow it. Do not initiate. Let the dog choose. Chosen contact activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Forced containment activates the threat system. These are neurologically opposite experiences. 2 things left. The first is about medication, and the answer is more nuanced than most trainers will tell you. The second is about specific breeds, because this is not equally distributed, and if you have a herding dog, there is something critical you need to know. Both coming up. Medication for storm phobia is genuinely useful. The evidence is solid. The resistance to it in some training communities, the idea that medication is a shortcut or a failure, is not grounded in neuroscience. A dog in severe panic during a storm is not in a state where behavioral learning can occur. The amygdala has overridden the prefrontal cortex and the reconsolidation window is closed. No counterconditioning applied at that moment is updating any fear memory. Situational medication, fast-acting anxiolytics used specifically during storm events, can raise the threshold enough that the desensitization work has room to operate. The medication is not the treatment. It is the neurological ramp that makes the treatment accessible. Trazodone, gabapentin, and similar options have established evidence bases for noise phobia specifically. A properly dosed dog is not sedated. Its threat system is quiet enough that the cortex can stay online. Speak to your vet specifically about storm phobia. Use that phrase. Ask what situational options are appropriate for your dog's health profile. And breed vulnerability because this is not uniformly distributed. Research across tens of thousands of dogs has found significant breed-level differences in noise sensitivity. Herding breeds show markedly higher rates of severe noise phobia. The sensitivity that makes a Border Collie an extraordinary working dog, finely tuned to environmental information, responsive to subtle changes, built to notice everything, is the same sensitivity that makes the gathering storm feel like the end of the world. If you have a herding breed, the protocol timeline needs to be realistic. These dogs may require months of careful work and possibly ongoing medication support. Their nervous systems are wired for a level of environmental awareness that makes noise phobia both more likely and more deeply encoded. That is not a character flaw. It is a design feature in the wrong context. Last section. This is the one I want you to carry with you after this tab closes. Because it is not actually about thunder. It is about something the science has only recently started to fully understand. Your dog's fear of thunder is not irrational. It is the product of a nervous system built for a world with real threats, one that learned, at some point, that a specific cluster of atmospheric signals reliably preceded something terrifying. The learning was accurate. The response was appropriate. The problem is only that the modern dog lives in a world where the storm cannot hurt it, but its nervous system has not been updated with that information. The fear is not a malfunction. It is the correct output of a system that was given accurate data and drew a reasonable conclusion. What you are undertaking, the safe space, the counterconditioning, the threshold work, the patient incremental protocol, is not correcting a broken dog. It is updating an ancient nervous system with new information. The information is, the storm will not hurt you here. The storm will pass. The pressure will drop and the static will build and the infrasound will press against your chest, and none of it will harm you. Your shelter is solid. Your human is calm. You are safe. That information cannot be told. It cannot be demonstrated once and understood. It has to be written into the nervous system through repetition, through hundreds of below-threshold moments where the storm sound starts and the extraordinary treat appears and the cortex stays online and the amygdala slowly, incrementally, updates its file. It will take longer than you want. There will be real storms in the middle of your protocol where everything seems to fall apart. And then, some weeks later, you will notice that the dog took a few minutes longer to start pacing. Or it accepted a treat it would have refused 6 months ago. Or it came to find you instead of disappearing into the bathroom. These are not small things. These are a nervous system rewriting itself. Slowly, below threshold, one session at a time. Your dog did not choose this fear. It was given to it by a history it cannot explain and a nervous system it cannot override through willpower. But it can be updated. By you. With time, and science, and the willingness to start the work before the next storm arrives. The storm will come. What your dog feels when it does, that part is yours to shape. If this changed how you understand your dog's storm fear, 2 things before you close this tab. First, subscribe, like and share this video with anyone you know who has a dog that dreads July 4th or New Year's Eve. Most of them are managing the explosion. Now they can address the fuse. Second, watch the video on reactive dog psychology linked in the description, because the amygdala hijack mechanism, the threshold concept, and the sensitization spiral we covered today are exactly the same mechanisms driving reactivity. Together, they give you the complete picture of how your dog's threat system works and how to work with it rather than against it. See you in the next one.